The Packers head to Minnesota and try to slow down the red-hot Vikings. The Vikings have a lot to play for, and the Packers hope to play spoiler. Can the Packers prove they can finally play with the best teams in the NFC? Rob and I discuss on today's episode.
Yeah, I've been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Okay. Hey. Yeah. Ain't no errors, baby, it's a new era. I wake up early feeling rich like I'm cash.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of Sounds Gouda. My name is Jordan Olson, and my co-host over here and best friend is Rob Relf. Thanks always to our new and returning listeners. We're excited to be talking Packers football with you, especially on Packers Vikings week. For those of you who know me, the Vikings are the team that I hate the most. That is the rivalry for me. I grew up right on the Minnesota-Wisconsin border, so really juiced for this game. And just a reminder, we have new episodes on Wednesdays and Saturdays on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So, Rob, really interesting. This line opened last week at a Vikings minus 1.5 points, but it's basically a pick'em now. Some websites have the Packers at a minus 1.5 points. Some of them have it as a pick'em. Some of them have it, 1 point for one team or the other. How are you feeling about this matchup in this big game that we got coming up that was flexed into the afternoon spot on Sunday?
Yeah, no doubt. In the grand scheme of things, for both teams, it really doesn't matter. Both the Minnesota Vikings, as crazy it is, and the Green Bay Packers, for as good as records that they have, will be wild card bursts in the playoffs that have already clinched. But for the Green Bay Packers, I think it means quite a bit. The Minnesota Vikings came into Lambeau, at least in that first half, and really laid it on them. I know we were dealing with a couple of injuries, and Jordan Addison ended up cooking us in that game. They were able to hold down Justin Jefferson pretty well. I think he still ended up having a touchdown and a couple of really good catches, as he always does, because he's one of the best receivers in the league. But, there's a couple of matchups that I think are going to be really intriguing. I really love what Brian Flores is doing as far as this defense goes. There's a lot of stats and metrics and different things as far as this defense, but it's a top 3 defense in the league for sure. And they're really good at stopping the run. I believe that they are second in the league. Both Green Bay and Minnesota are very good, respectively. At least Green Bay here lately. So you have Aaron Jones. Obviously, we all know that narrative of him and what went down, and almost getting Josh Jacobs and Aaron Jones for about 90 minutes until that news broke that Aaron Jones wasn't going to be on the team. That would have been fun, but Aaron Jones going up against a Green Bay, rushing attack that's been really solid here the last, 5-6 weeks. It's been evident every single week. I think I've been able to highlight it. And then Josh Jacobs, right, our bell cow running back, who's been really good, going up against that very, very aggressive, blitz-heavy Brian Flores defense over there that's really good at stopping the run too. So an unstoppable force meets an unmovable object. So to say, and not only that, but up to boot. But the Minnesota Vikings getting Sam Darnold, who, let's just both admit it, Jordan, we did not think or saw anybody in the league, not just us, saw this coming from Sam Darnold to be able to do what he's doing, which I think puts on another storyline here too, which we can touch on too. But Kevin O'Connell being an absolute hell of a coach, right? Seeing what he did with Cousins for those years. Now how Cousins is performing at Atlanta, could be the Achilles, could not. But anyway, what he's doing, how he's been able to resurrect Sam Darnold's career, it's been absolutely amazing. Last week there was a really close game with them up in Seattle, which I thought the Seahawks should have won, but then Sam Darnold just puts a money ball right on Justin Jefferson, and he was able to leak into that backfield deep in the end zone for them to squeak away with that win. So Sam Darnold anyway keeps, coming up to play really well, and he's been showing it every single week. It's not anything that's just been luck so far. The kid's actually got talent. And then Mr. Toyota-thon himself, Jordan Love, who hasn't thrown a pick. The last game he got really close with the ball that got tipped, and I think I highlighted that in the last spot, but he's been really efficient, running, being able to run the ball effectively for our team, and how good our offensive line have held him up and not given up many sacks, which I believe they are second in the league as far as giving up sacks, the fewest sacks given up to the quarterback. So both those guys are playing at an elite level. Both have really good rushing games. I would say Green Bay's probably got the better offensive line. Minnesota does have a really good right tackle in Brian O'Neill, all-pro right tackle, but I really feel the rest of their depth in the guard and center and the left tackle is kind of some question marks too, so I'd give a little bit of the edge there to Green Bay, but both absolute juggernauts at this point. And the stats point out for it too. This is why this is such a hard game. Some betting sites have this as the Packers, -1, and some others have the Minnesota -1. Jordan, me and you were just talking. Some have the Minnesota favored by -5 points. So it's kind of all over the board. And really in the grand scheme of things, this means nothing for both teams as we're trying to, they're both trying to get healthy and head into the playoffs with good momentum. But I still think we're going to see a really competitive game. And I think this one is a little bit more hungry for the Packers. That's just my biased take.
I want to change that narrative a little bit. I think that this game means far more than nothing for both of these teams. I want to point out that the Lions don't play until Monday night. I think statistically, the Vikings can still win the division if the Lions were to lose the next 2 weeks. And I know the Niners have not had the season that we had come to expect of the Niners, but the Niners, they don't want to go 0-2 to end the year. And I think that they've got a lot to play for. They've got a lot of pride. They want to play spoiler. And I think the Vikings know that. So knowing that they have to play to win both weeks, I think that that means something to them. I think that the Vikings see that there's still a margin to win the division, and they're going to go out there and prove that. And then, you've got the Packers, which they have this whole narrative of this year. We're an 11-win football team right now, but we haven't beat the big dogs. We haven't beat Philadelphia, Detroit, or Minnesota. And I think it means a hell of a lot to them to go on the road, beat a division rival, and squash that narrative going into the playoffs to say, hey, we've arrived. Whatever we do in Week 18, we can beat the best of these teams, and we're going to do it on the road the rest of the way, so we're going to show you today. And I think that'll mean a lot for the self-confidence of this team to just know that they can go in there and do that. So, I don't know. Both teams have motives for different reasons, even though, as you say, Rob, the outcome of where they're at now, projected 5th seed, 6th seed, may not change in 2 weeks when the playoffs begin. So here's a question I have for you. So Kevin O'Connell, phenomenal coach. We've got Dan Campbell. We've got great coaches in this division.
Yeah.
Kevin O'Connell right now is the front runner for Coach of the Year. And you know what? Probably should be. In our predictions early in the season, I had the Vikings finishing 4th in this division with 7 or 8 wins. He was going to have to test out J.J. McCarthy. You already mentioned what he's been able to do for Sam Darnold. But, it goes Kevin O'Connell, Dan Campbell, Sean Payton, Dan Quinn as the top candidates. Kevin O'Connell by far the favorite. Matt LaFleur is not even in the top 8 in this conversation. How does that make you feel?
I mean, I feel always Matt LaFleur doesn't get enough credit. I feel like he deserves a lot more credit, specifically what he's done for what he did earlier on in the season with Malik Willis.
Mm-hmm. Hell yeah.
I mean, that guy was an absolute train wreck. Now, whether he absolutely, snapped his fingers and something all of a sudden clicked, I highly doubt it. I think whether it's a matter of building his confidence up, putting him in the right situation with the right plays, with the right players. I mean, there's a whole level of details that we go into as far as that goes. But, a couple of games, he played a really good Titans defense, and still the Titans have their absolute train wreck on offense, but they have a halfway decent defense. Their defense hasn't been too bad this year. And Malik Willis was able to put it on them. So I think he's done a really, really good job as far as that goes. Now, the bigger type of story and narrative, I totally understand why Kevin O'Connell is the front runner because of the point you just alluded to. I mean, nobody saw this coming. And then, not only that, but it just, from what it just puts more of an emphasis for me on how good of a coach he is, because look at what Kirk Cousins is doing in Atlanta. Now, I get it. It might be a year removed from him, not being as mobile with his Achilles injury, which totally might be the case. But Atlanta is loaded with weapons over there, right? So it'd just be maybe Raheem Morris is just that bad of a coach. I don't know. But Kevin O'Connell doing what he's doing for what he did for Kirk Cousins, and now what he's doing in resurrecting Sam Darnold's career is absolutely incredible. The other one on there too, I would say, is Dan Quinn. For him, to do what he's doing with Jaden Daniels, a rookie, he's gonna win Rookie of the Year, right? Like, I don't think there's any. I think after what he did this last weekend with the Philadelphia Eagles, he's gonna win that one. But
that would be my vote right now, So, and I just, for all the things you mentioned, and I'd hate to see a Viking coach or player win any of these awards, right? But I truly, if I'm being unbiased, Kevin O'Connell probably deserves to win this award. But for Matt LaFleur to not even be in the conversation, I know Sean Payton has resurrected that Broncos team. Dan Campbell, though, he's been a great coach, but he's got probably two of the best assistants in the league. Matt LaFleur has seen his assistants come and go, and finally he's got, Jeff Hafley. But I think the Coach of the Year award always goes to like a season narrative, but I don't think that there's enough credit or narrative for what the transition's been like from Aaron Rodgers. The fact that he's led the youngest team in back-to-back years to the playoffs. He's going to end up with 13 wins, maybe. Let's hope 13 wins, but we'll see what they do against the Bears. If they lose this game to the Vikings, they still be motivated to end on a high note with the win. I don't know. Whatever happens in this game will change that whole narrative, but I don't know. I think that's pretty disrespectful to where Matt LaFleur's at this point in time and what he's done with the Packers this season. Pivot a little bit. So Sam Darnold, he's like 6th right now in the MVP conversation, which, it's really a 2-person race. It's kind of a Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen contest at this point in time, which I hope that Josh Allen finally gets one. He's been doing it at a high level for a really long time, and I love Josh Allen's game. But like, this just real quick, if you're the Vikings, what do you do this offseason? Do you move on from Sam Darnold? Do you sign him to an extension? What do you do?
Oh, man.
He's already won 13 games. He's probably going to win 14. They might win a playoff game. How do you move on from Sam Darnold?
Just when you think like our most ideal dream job would be the GM of, the Green Bay Packers, right? Obviously, but any NFL team for that matter, you got to deal with situations like this. There is absolutely no way in hell they should be getting rid of Darnold. If anything, you sign him to a 2-3 year, maybe a 3-year contract with the last year being able to opt out with some really good high guaranteed money, and just sit JJ McCarthy. Hate to give Vikings a blueprint, but it's pretty evident all over if they know anything about Packers history. But this year's lost. For him. Besides him physically, I'm sure he's in the room, he's learning, he's soaking in that knowledge, but it's only so much you can do with that before, you can't go out and be on the backup squad there trying to get those reps in, right? So this is almost just a wash year. You sit JJ McCarthy for another couple of years, you can't get rid of Darnold for what he's done this year. That would be the dumbest move for them. I really do think it would be. Could this be just a one whole year flash in the plan? I would be extraordinarily shocked, especially with how good of a coach Kevin O'Connell is, for that to actually be the case. So I think you got to sign him to maybe a 3-year contract with an opt-out or an option for that last year. Sit J.J. McCarthy. Let him learn. Let him ride. Pull the Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers, way to be able to develop quarterbacks. And then, in the last couple, you never know if Darnold is going to get injured too as well. So he can step in at any time and be able to see what the kid's got. And, we saw that, right? We saw that with Jordan Love. He came into Kansas City. That Kansas City game he started looked horrible. Tough environment, really tough team, tough defense to go up against. So there's a lot of different things going on there for your first start. But then we all remember when he came in for the injured Aaron Rodgers against Philadelphia Eagles, and he just was slinging it, similar to what Aaron Rodgers was. You're like, dude, there's something here. Like, we saw the same thing with Rodgers when he came in Dallas back in the day. You know, there's something there. So that is the playbook that I would do for Darnold. But then again, I'm not Kwesi, so
Here's my take,
I'm not sure.
I'll keep it simple.
Yeah.
Franchise tag him 1 year. Like, if you don't,
Pretty
I don't
expensive.
know that. Yeah, but I mean, so is signing him to an extension. But you know what franchise tagging him does? Is it
gives you the option out if he sucks the next year.
It makes this proof of concept. It gives you another year to make that decision, right? If Sam Darnold clearly performs at this level again or close to it next year for another year, you can safely sign him to that 4 or 5 year deal and still trade JJ McCarthy for a second round pick. And you know that you've got your guy. And it gives JJ 1 more year to develop. He should be ideally ready in year 3. If Sam Darnold regresses or comes back to the mean of where he's been at most of the rest of his career. So that's what I do. You know, yeah, it'll be like a 1 year, $50 million deal. But I mean, if you sign him to 4 years, $200 million, I mean, that's going to be more expensive and harder to get out of. So I would tag him. I think it gives you the most options to assess and make a good decision for your franchise moving forward. So
it's not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all.
So let's get into talking about the game a little bit, you know, and just one more narrative that I want to talk. Well, I got a couple, but we'll try to weave them into this conversation. You know, the Vikings right now, for where they're at compared to the Packers are at, you know, the Packers are still the youngest team in the NFL, and the Vikings are the second oldest team in the NFL. So we talk about future prospects and how this projects into 2025 and 2026. You know, as we know, old teams, they tend to start to fall apart at some point in time. So this could be a 1-2 year thing, but they're going to need to retool with younger talent to keep up with the Lions and the Packers in the long term. And we'll see how that plays out in this division here. So let's talk about the Packers. How can they win this game, Rob? What do you see? What are the key matchups? What are the Packers going to have to do to come out ahead of this game in Minnesota?
Yeah. Well, obviously, I was alluding to this from previous, but Josh Jacobs up against that run defense. I think it all starts with that. Are you able to run the ball effectively? I think that just sets everything else up. I think Tucker Kraft, you know, he's utilized also as well as another one of Jordan Love's security blankets. He's obviously phenomenal. You can play him inline, outline. You can move him around. He does his tush pushes, which is awesome. The Packer style, the tush push. You know,
I love it. I love Tucker Kraft.
Yeah, I know you do. So getting him involved too. Jaden Reed, getting him some different ways to be able to get him the ball. We see pretty consistently when you're able to get him the ball, and he's your leader in receiving yards. The Packers do well when that's the case. And by the way, he did catch a deep ball. I was pretty stoked about from the last game, or at least a deeper ball.
Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going, guys.
Yeah. You know, Christian Watson, I really hope he's healthy, even when he's not like the focal point of the Packers offense. You can just see, like, on tape, there's more than a couple plays that I was rewatching from some folks that posted it on the interwebs. He makes a massive difference for the defense. He's used as a really fast decoy. He takes some people with him, which obviously opens up stuff for more in the middle. Maybe a Tucker Kraft, maybe a Jaden Reed, maybe Romeo Doubs, whatever it might be. So I think he's extremely important to our offense, and I hope that he can go. I know he had a knee bruise, so I was hoping that injury wasn't going to be able to, affect him too much, because he is very, very important to our team. Obviously, Jordan Love being able to play efficient. I think this might be another game, too, where Brian Flores turns on the Detroit Lions game here that was a few weeks ago, and looking at what they did to absolutely kill them in that first half as far as scheme-wise goes on defense. And they sent a lot of different types of pressures, a lot of different types of unique blitzes. So the offensive line is going to need to come up and be able to, again, hold Jordan Love upright and not be able to have him be sacked on a very aggressive defense. And then, Jordan Love not being able to turn the ball over and hit a couple more deep shots. He was slightly off in that Lambeau game. It was a little rainy, was a little bit wet. I'm talking about this last one against the Saints. Indoors, perfect condition, so literally no excuses as far as that goes. But if he can play a little bit more, if he can be a little bit more accurate as far as some of his deep shots or deeper over towards the middle, I think that'll be able to help us as well, because there's more than a couple chances of him being able to hit some of those in that Saints game. So running the ball, not turning the ball over, and then obviously on defense, right? Edrin Cooper just continuing to wreck the game. You got to hold down Jordan Addison, but then if you're holding down Jordan Addison, you have TJ Hawkinson who's back who can kill us over the middle, and then you have Justin
I was going to mention
Jefferson.
that we didn't see TJ the last time they played because he was still on the IR, and I think that is going to be a factor in this game. You know, you look at I think Justin Jefferson had 85 yards and a touchdown. Jordan Addison had 73 yards and a touchdown, and Aaron Jones had 93 yards on the ground and 4 receptions for 46 yards. I mean, they gave us everything that we could handle the last time. It's really one of the only games this season where the opposing team's stars have all been able to take advantage. And then you throw TJ Hawkinson in that mix. And I did see that the Jaws probably ruled out for this game already.
Yeah, he probably won't even be ready to playoffs if he's ready, from what it sounds like.
Yeah, so, and I mean, this was the game that that was hoping they would have him back for because of all the weapons. But, you know, I just guess get him right? You still have 2 more years under contract, big cap hits, you know, $25 and $27 million. So, you know, whether you're going to play him next year, you need him in the playoffs, or even if they want to dangle him for that like 2nd round pick, I mean, they got to get him healthy because nobody's going to want, you know, extremely damaged goods in a trade. You're going to get any meaningful value backs. You know, the bright spot is that they played Carrington Valentine a whole lot more. I think 70% of snaps or more the last game. And, you know, I felt like he did pretty good. So hopefully we continue to play more Carrington Valentine and less Eric Stokes. You know, a couple places that I look at statistically, you know, the Vikings, as you mentioned, are stout against the run. They're 2nd against the rush. And I still think Josh Jacobs is going to have more or less a normal day at the office and end up with, you know, close to 100 yards, you know, total yards of scrimmage, whether that's rushing or receiving. But they are 29th against the pass and pass yards allowed. And I think Jordan Love and this complement of wide receivers can take advantage. I hope they learn from that Lions game. I think they'll probably be a little bit more ready to make some adjustments earlier. You know, they did adjust in the second half and kind of got right after you did point out they pressured us a bunch in that Lions game and kind of gave teams a blueprint. We had a lot of unscouted players that we were going against, which I know raised some concern and eyebrows for a lot of people. You know, the other thing that I look at is that, you know, I think that our defensive line and our front 7 is really going to have to show up and pressure Darnold and cause him to make a mistake. And, you know, one old narrative that I wanted to put to bed, I was looking at stats after the Saints game. So officially the Packers are 6th in the NFL in sacks after all of the conversation that we had and about the slow start and we can't generate a pass rush. The only teams ahead of them right now are the Broncos with 51 sacks, the Ravens with 47, Cowboys with 46, Texans with 46, the Vikings with 44, and then the Packers are at 43. And I don't know if this is 100% factual. I think I read it on Twitter or X, you know, whatever you call it these days. But I think the Packers have been the number 1 team in sacks since the Packers bye week. So, you know, you've seen some of those guys get going. J.J. Enagbari, Devontae Wyatt, you know, Rashawn Gary, even though he hasn't been stacking up the sacks, have created a ton of pressure.
Brenton Cox Jr. has been playing lights out, and Halfley did a big old thing on him too on that press conference if people want to check it out. So shout out Brenton Cox.
And, you know, and Cooper's gotten in the mix too. He's a missile from that second level that you can send and do a bunch of stuff with. So I think if we can get after Sam Darnold, you mentioned their line. I still think that they have like a kind of a top 10 offensive line unit. They've really surprised me. And I know who's their left tackle that went down early in the season. They did a great thing by going out and trading for Cam Robinson.
They got Cam Robinson. Yep.
But who's their other left tackle that's really good? I don't know. It doesn't matter right now. It's early for both of us, so we're having a little bit of brain fog. But I think if the Packers can come away with 2 or 3 sacks and cause Darnold to make a mistake, I like our chances in this. So let's get into some score predictions.
Christian Darrisaw.
Christian Darrisaw, yeah, former number 1 pick. He's a great player, right? He's probably the best player on their offensive line. We'll see what happens with the injuries. We know we talked about Alexander likely not going to play. I wouldn't really count Bullard in, wouldn't count Walker in. We'll see what happens with Christian Watson. The Vikings are a relatively healthy team. They got a couple people ruled out, Fabian Monroe and Jalen Redmond, and then CJ Ham and Harrison Smith are questionable for this game. So, all right, Rob, the time is now. What do you got for a score prediction?
Yeah. I think the Packers can go in and they can do it. They've had some good history, at least the last couple of years, in US Bank Stadium, of coming in there and putting a good routing on the Vikings. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to be the case. I think it is really going to be a phenomenal matchup. Obviously, it's flexed into the game of the week in the afternoon at 3:30. I'm assuming we'll get Tom Brady and Kevin Burkhardt for all you. And
another game with Tom Brady.
And
I hope he's one and done on that. He can go be a Raiders owner, whatever.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I'll take Greg Olson and Kevin Burkhardt back, please. I thought they're a good duo. But so this is going to be a really, really good game, and really in the grand scheme of things, right? Like I was saying before, it does not matter. But like you were alluding to, Jordan, for each team and for what it means for the Vikings, as a slight possibility that the Lions could lose their last 2 games. Probably won't, but you never know, right? Crazier things have happened.
Well, they go head-to-head the last week, Vikings-Lions, so they just got to hope that the Lions kick this one against the Niners.
Right. And for the Packers, too, to be able to put this narrative of, not being able to beat a big old juggernaut team. So I love the Packers here to go on and take care of business 20-24.
Yeah, I feel good. I feel better than I probably should have. A part of it is that narrative that when the Packers have lost to the Vikings, they usually bounce back. I'm going with a 30-28 victory for the Packers. It's going to be close. It's going to be another classic game, kind of like when they played the Lions this last time around. I don't expect them to get down in a big way like the first time we played the Vikings. So if they take the ball, they get ahead. I like the Packers' chances in this game. Couple players to watch for me. I think Devontae Wyatt is going to get a sack again, 3rd sack in 3 games, and create tremendous pressure on the interior offensive line. I think that's going to be momentous in this game. And then on the offensive side of the ball, Jaden Reed is going to get going. You saw him start last week, and he's had a tremendous career against the Vikings. In his last 3 matchups against the Vikings, he's had 17 receptions, 311 yards for an 18.3 yard per catch average and 3 touchdowns. So, basically sign him up for 6 receptions, 100 yards, and a touchdown in this game. If you go off those metrics, I'm feeling like that storyline's going to continue. So that's what I got for you folks. Really excited, and we'll let Rob close this one out. So,
yeah, we look forward to a really, really good game. Hope you all had a very Merry Christmas. Just know that new Packers content comes out from us every Wednesday and every Saturday. If you know a Packer friend or two, please be able to make sure to share it with them. We would genuinely appreciate it. If you are listening on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcast, make sure to give us a sub, like, and follow us on all those platforms. If you want to connect with us on social media /Twitter, I am at SoundsGooda with 3 A's at the end. Jordan is at Olson Jord. And also, too, we want to mention, we hope that you have a happy new year as well. So tons of holidays going on these days. Need to make sure I'm pointing that out for you guys, too, as well. But we generally wish that you have a happy new year and that you have many great things coming to you in the year 2025. So, well, Packers fans, let's hope to go into US Bank Stadium right across the border and kick some Vikings butt. We appreciate you all coming back and taking a listen to us. We hope that you have a good morning, a good afternoon, and a good night. Take care. Go Pack, go.
Go Pack.
Been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Okay.